Hey there, this is Katherine Cartwright. Welcome. I am sharing the latest card kit from the Stamps of Life. This is the stamp and die set that I also received. If you're a club member, you may have this as well. I'm going to be using this a little bit with the kit. I definitely am going to be using the dies that I got to cut the paper pad apart. There are a couple of pages in there that have cutouts that coordinate. So I'll show you more about that in a second. All right, so let's get to the fun part of unboxing this kit. It's called So Kind Collection. This is May 2023. You get an idea card right off the bat that has 3 great color pictures, so you have inspiration instantly the moment you open the box. You get some pearls. There is a ribbon here, this beautiful organdy ribbon. I'm just trying to peel that little sticker off, and there it is. I felt like it was kind of a cream color, not a white. Very, very pretty. There are these really cute paper clips. They're very flat, so they aren't too bulky, and they work great to add to your projects. And they have 4 of them with those different words in them. There are, of course, some die word sets. There are 2 in this kit. This one says So Kind. And then the other one is, I'll show you in a second, is You're the Best. There are also these really cute button stickers. And then here are some puffy flower stickers that coordinate with that stamp set. You always get some freebies from Ken, one of the owners of the company, and that's that You're the Best word die I mentioned a second ago. Here's an A1 flower folded. I'll use this in my video as well and show you how that comes together. You get a folder, you get envelopes, you get cardstock, and then a paper pad. And I'm going to show you the paper pad in just a second. So here is the cardstock. You get powdered sugar in this kit to help you create card bases or to cut word dies or whatever you want to use it for. There's licorice, green apple, pixie, and Kiwi, which is a little brighter green, with a little bit more of a yellow undertone, and then Ocean. One of my very favorite blues ever of all time is Ocean. I use it all the time. And so all of this is included in the box, and then of course the paper pad. So let me flip through this with you so you can see what you get this month. Got this adorable flower, and here is that cut apart page I was mentioning, that if you are a Stamp and Die club member, you receive the coordinating dies, and they worked perfectly with this paper pad. So I'm just going to peel out this one larger flower and add it to there so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to spend a second in just a minute and cut those apart. I'm going to make 10 cards in this video too. It's a little bit long, but hopefully you think it's worth it, and you'll get some inspiration to use with this kit. If you're not a club member, I have linked all of the information in the description of this video. You can go to the website and learn more about all the different clubs. They've also added a fold-it club recently in the last several months or so. And so they have lots of different options if you're interested in that kind of thing. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to begin by pulling out these 2 pages that have the florals already printed on there, which is so great. They're pre-printed, and then I'm going to die cut them out. So I already will have a great start on making some cards and projects with this ability to die cut that. I love that the dies coordinate with the paper pad. So I'm just going to add a little bit of tape here. I'm just showing you how this works. So if you're interested in the club, this is the kind of thing that you would get with the Stamp and Die, and then with the card kit. You would have all of these items together if you had all of these clubs. So lots of different options available. All right, let me take this piece down. There's a cute leaf in there as well, and you can see in the die set there are a bunch of other dies that you can use to create all of your different posies. So I'm just going to run my scissors around, and then I can run these through my die machine, and then I will have a bunch of these to use. So I'm going to pull out the little small one. There's even a smaller one than this. You can see that. You'll see that in a second. but I'm just going to show you these. And I am going to tape them down because I'm going to run them through my machine, and I just don't want them to shift on me. So I've got this mint tape that I use all the time that works great for this kind of application. You can also use it to mask things if you're using stencils. It's a great product to mask off parts of a stencil. And I am going to use a stencil set in this video as well later, so stay tuned. All right, let me run this through my machine and I'll show you what I get. So quick and easy. And again, all the coloring is done for you. If you're not interested in coloring, they've got you covered. All right, and there is the leaf and that largest flower and then the medium flower. And I'm going to go ahead off camera and run the rest of these through my machine and show you how many I have. So I've got 10 of the large flowers, 4 of the medium flowers, and then 4 leaves. But since I have the stamps and dies, I can go ahead and create some other flowers as I need, and I will. I'm going to show you some coloring as well in this video using the Tri-Blend Spectrum Noir markers. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Lots of fun coming up. All right, so now I've got everything cut out and I can go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin, my first project is going to be a slimline card. I still love slimlines. I'm curious if you still make slimlines. They were super popular for several years. I'm not sure if they're quite as popular anymore, but I still enjoy them because you get a lot of space to create with and decorate with, and you can put, they fit gift cards and money. So they're just a fun size. It's just something different. As a longtime card maker, it's fun to create different things. So I used that Stitch Square Slimline, and I've run that through with the Pixie, and then I'm going to cut the background for the green. So again, I will link all of these products in the description. You may have some of them in your craft room already, so maybe this will inspire you to pull some things out and make a few things. So I'm going to layer this on top of the green apple cardstock. I'm going to use some liquid glue here, but I did go ahead and stamp Enjoy. That came from the Posies2stamp set. So I just used some black ink and I went ahead and stamped that because I knew I wanted a sentiment. So I went ahead and did that before I glued it down, and then I had to work around that. So sometimes I forget to do things like that. I'll add the sentiment later, but I actually remembered this time. So it worked out just great. And I'm going to pull out some of these flowers once this dries. So I've just got that, let that dry for a second. And I have made a card base, 8.5 by 3.5 is the standard size of the Slimline. And this set that I have includes the card base, so I can just easily make a bunch of those too to save time. So I've got some little foam dots here that I'm going to add to the back of my flowers, and then I'm going to add them to each one of my squares. So a pretty simple card, but with those beautiful already colored and printed flowers, it makes really quick work of cards like this. So I'm going to add that pink one on the top and the purple, and then another pink with a little bit of a different shade. And then off camera, I went ahead and tied a little bow, and I just added a little piece of foam tape, and I'm going to pop that up on there. And so my first card is done. Okay, I wanted to spend a few minutes specifically doing some coloring with my Tri-Blend markers. I have enjoyed these. They have a nib to them, so you can see it's a little point, kind of like a marker as opposed to a brush tip. I know that the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend, they do have a brush marker. I have that one as well, but I tend to gravitate more toward the nib if I have to choose between the two. But there's great if you have both, because there are a lot of different uses that you can use to apply to different cards based on your needs. So the Tri-Blend has 3 markers included, hence the name Tri-Blend, and they pop apart. So there's a light color, a medium color, and a dark color. This is the purple blend, and then they have some numbers with them, but I don't really focus on those much because the marker is all together and I just know which end is light and which end is dark. If you forget, you can look on the side. If you look down at my finger, you can see a little bit of writing at the tip of my finger, and that tells you if it's light, medium, or dark. So the way I'm coloring this petal, I wanted to spend a minute on it, is I laid down the light color. I went back with some medium color, and then I went back with a little bit of dark, but just a dark on the edges. And then I'm going to come back again with the light and kind of blend this together. So I made a little bit of darkness around the edges of the petal, but the outside edges, but not the very bottom. And I will say about alcohol ink markers is to just let them take their time. I have learned that over the years. I've watched videos, I've watched different things trying to improve my coloring technique. I don't think I'm a terrific colorer, hence why I love the Tri-Blend, because it makes, I think, my coloring look better, because I don't have to choose 2 colors or 3 colors to put together. So that's one of the things I have really liked about it. So I'm just repeating this process with the other petals. I have just sped it up. So again, I started with the light, did a little bit of medium around the whole petal, and then came back with some dark on the outer edges of it. And I will say about coloring, I have pretty strong opinions about it, in that you should color the way that you want to color. I know there's some techniques and definitely things you can pay attention to, like the light and dark and the shadows if you're going for really realistic. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We all are at different levels of coloring. We all have different preferences. And so, long story short, I'm just saying embrace coloring and enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then you need to do something else. It should be a fun thing that you do. It shouldn't cause any stress or anxiety. It's really a release of creativity for me. And so if my flower doesn't look like yours, that's okay. I'm just giving you some tips of the way that I like to do it that you might find interesting. You always, if you wanted to have a realistic flower, you could actually go pick one from your yard and, shine a flashlight on it and look at how it looks with the light a certain way. If you really wanted to get technical, I don't tend to spend that much time on it. I kind of, have it the way I want it, and that's the way it is. So anyway, I hope you are enjoying this. But I did add a little bit of darkness to that one part of the flower. I felt like that was probably one of the areas where it would be kind of darker, where the other petals are on top. So that's why that one section just has a little bit more darkness on there. I did that intentionally, just to make it kind of pop off the page a little bit. But again, the most important thing about it is to just do it. If you want to color, these markers are really, really great for coloring, because again, all the work has been done for you. It's just a matter of learning how to blend things together the way you want them to be. And there's tons of resources. So anyway, I have really enjoyed this product. I've had these for several years and have used them many, many times. So that's that first posy. Now I'm going to take one of the smaller ones and spend a minute on it too. I'm going to lay down the lightest color, like I did on that first flower, but that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to go around and do this one color on all of the petals, and I'm going to come back and do a little bit of a different technique with it, just to get a little bit of a different look. So I'm going to fill all of these in, and you're just dyeing your paper, so I'm just making sure that I like the way it looks, that the paper is pretty saturated, not a lot of streaks. And again, let that alcohol ink do its work. So I'm coming back here with the medium color, and I'm just going to kind of flick some lines in there, and I'm kind of curving them a little bit to give a little movement and to add a little bit more detail to this flower. Now, since I'm using the medium, it will blend in a fair amount into the lighter color. So I'm definitely going to come back with a little bit of the dark. I don't want to overwhelm it. So I'm just going to come back and add a little bit of the dark on the top to add a little bit of detail from the center of my flower. But this is a really fun and quick and easy way to color flowers as well. And again, you get that fun movement. This to me kind of makes it look a little bit like a pansy by adding those lines on the center. So that's just another way to color. So again, lots of different ways to do it. I'm going to do the leaf a little bit here. I've got the citrus blend. No, this is not. This is the green blend. The citrus blend is yellow. So this is the green blend, and I'll list the 3 colors that I mostly used. I am going to use some other colors later in on a box card that I'm going to do. And I am just working on finishing up this leaf. I can't seem to get the directions straight of which way I want it to do. I wanted to kind of copy the way that these printed ones were done. And so I'm just going to blend out that top where I had gone the wrong direction. I'm coming back with my darker color here. And I have a nice little line there. So different shade, but I've got more of those. So that's just a little bit about coloring and the way I like to do it with those markers. And I hope you found that helpful. So I'm moving on to do a fold it. So included in your card kit is an A1 sized folded flower. So cute. So I have gone ahead and cut some of the pieces off camera because again, I know this video is super long, but I got carried away a little bit. So I'm going to layer on this top piece, and then I cut the So Kind, that top flower, from the paper pad. And I'm sorry I'm out of the camera a little bit. I also cut the green. Here it comes back in. And I have just cut these from different colors. It's really quick and easy to kind of paper piece this back together. I just ran this die through my machine a few times to get the colors that I wanted. And now I'm going to glue them down. Just getting that flower, the leaf part, the correct direction. So I used a darker green, and then I've got the kiwi to go on top for a little bit of contrast. And then I will layer on the So Kind part. I've got to still make my card base, but I like to, when I make a fold it, I like to cut kind of the base layer, which will go on top of the fold it. And I'll show you that in a second. It'll make a little bit more sense. I have lots of videos on my channel with fold its and reels, I know, and Instagram. So be sure and check out my social media. I've been loving my fold its over the years, and this is going to be another great one to add to my collection. So it came with these little circles. So there's the main circle, which is going to be the center of my flower, and then that little dotted one to the left, that is a drop-in. And so you have to run that through, and I missed a little bit of cutting my flower, so I had to cut it again. I didn't run it through the whole way. I was being lazy. So there it is. And but you have to layer the little drop-in die with that circle again, and you will get another cutout, which is going to fit perfectly on top of that bubblegum colored circle. That's bubblegum cardstock that I'm using from Stamps of Life. So I'm going to run this through the whole way this time. Make sure back and forth that I actually cut it out. And then I will layer this onto my center. So cute. And you'll see that by layering those two items together, you get this really cute punch out that has all of the details for your flower center. So I'm just going to glue this on here, and again it fits perfectly because it's the same circle. You have just dropped something inside of it, another shape. And then I will adhere this to my flower, just making sure I get all the little pieces out of there. It popped out pretty easily. And I'm going to add a little bit of foam here for some dimension. And then I will add this to the center of my card. Everything's sticking to my hands today. You can see I've got all these little papers everywhere. I always forget to put my little trash can there with me. And so all these things end up all over the place. The little backings from the foam and the tapes, those kind of things. I'm going to take one of these beautiful blue pearls and add it to the center of this flower. Now, I have already added this to my base, and I'll have to link the description, link a video in there showing you how to do that folded. Okay, I'm going to trim this paper down. Moving on to another card, I've got the jar to stamp, that I love, and I'm going to fill it with flowers. I've got these puffy flowers here. I've got that upper layer of the jar is in sky cardstock, and the lower layer is probably lemonade or sunshine. It's one of the bright yellows out of the Stamps of Life collection. So I'm going to take these flowers, and I'm going to just, since they're on a clear backing and I'm able to see them, I'm going to trim them and kind of work on my layout of where I want these flowers to go in my jar. And they are puffy, so they have a little bit of dimension to them. So I'm not going to add anything extra, but just the flowers. So again, I'm just kind of figuring out the size, where I want things to go, and how I want this to go together. And that's the nice part about having them on a clear sheet, is you can see what you're doing without peeling them off, so you don't ruin anything if you want to change your mind. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with where things are going. And then I am going to start layering these on there. Every time I work with puffy stickers, it makes me think of the 80s. I'm middle-aged, getting closer, as we like to say, although I know I'm more than middle-aged. But every time I use a puffy sticker, it reminds me of the 80s. And I would go to the mall, and there was a store, I cannot remember the name of it, but they had puffy stickers, and they were kind of expensive for, you know, a teenager, but I remember I always was obsessed with the puffy stickers. And so every time I use these, it takes me back to those days of younger years. So the card's starting to come together now. I've layered that jar onto the yellow, and then I also used a banner set, an older banner set, to stamp and create a banner for my card. And I love this, that they included some black and white paper in this paper pack, so you can use it for a lot of different things. So I'm using one of these with the polka dots, kind of random polka dots, and it's hard sometimes to use this paper because I don't want to give it up. I know that I've talked with friends that craft about kind of hoarding paper a little bit, specifically pattern paper that you might never see again. But anyway, I'm letting it go, and I am using it. So I added some little foam dots to the back of my jar, as well as my banner. And I know who I'm going to send this to. And so I will put that to the side and get that ready for mailing when I finish. But before I finished it off, I wanted to add some of these beautiful pearls. I thought it would be fun to kind of bling out the top of my jar. And so I'm just going to add a row here of the medium-sized pearls. You could use the small ones if you preferred. And they actually fit really well. I had not measured them out to see. I was hoping that they would fit well, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I was pleased with the end result. So just a cute, fun way to use that jar and some of your stickers. All right, I've gone ahead here, and I had one of these the telephone set. I loved the telephone set. I've had this one for years. I bet this was one of the first sets I ever got from Stamps of Life. I don't know if the phone thing is an 80s thing too, because I spent a lot of my life on the telephone. We actually had so much time on the telephone that my dad had a second line installed because his teenagers were tying up the phone too much. So we actually had a dedicated phone line that my brother and I could use. So he was not missing any important calls, which makes me laugh so hard because my dad is still the same way. He has a cell phone now, obviously, we all do. And he cannot stand to miss a phone call. So the second that phone rings on his cell phone, he is on top of it. And if he misses it, it upsets him. So this telephone set just always makes me think of that with him, of having that phone line and pulling that cord, a corded phone. My children have no idea what a corded phone is. So anyway, I'm going down. Everything today is taking me down 80s memory lane. I apologize. I'm all over the place with my thought process. But you can see I have put together a sweet little card using some of those die cuts and then adding a few more of those puffy stickers. And I just used the You Are One of a Kind from the stamp set. And then I'm going to finish this one off with some Stickles glitter glue. All right, I've got another piece of paper here. I went ahead, since I had my jar set out, I decided I wanted to create another jar full of buttons. When I saw the little button, they're stickers, I guess you'd say, the button stickers. I thought they would look great in a jar. So I used the polka dot patterned paper that's included in this card kit paper pad. I added the hello on there, and then I'm going to add a So Kind word die. I love these little paper clips. They are so cute. They're really not thick at all. They're very, very thin, so they don't add any bulk to your card, which is great. And so now I'll add that cute little jar. I added a little bow on the front from that ribbon, the beautiful organdy ribbon, and I filled my jar full of buttons. I think I just have just a couple left, but I thought that ended up being cute. And then I'm going to add the So Kind. I'm just going to add some foam to one side since I've got the buttons on the other side. I probably would add a little tiny bit of adhesive, but I couldn't find my adhesive at this time, so I'll have to go back and add a little bit on that left side to make sure that everything stays secure. All right, moving right along. I have pulled out the photo frame die. That's an older one as well. I'm going to actually make 2 shaker cards in this video, which is a little bit unusual for me to make 2, but one is going to be a little bit different than the other one. So I'm running these through. I'm using some of that black and white pattern paper, and then I've got some cherry cardstock here for my back, and I'm going to put this together. I haven't actually made a shaker card in a while, so I had to think about things a little bit, the construction. So I've got some acetate here, a nice heavyweight acetate, and I am just going to trim this down by eye to get that to stick where it's going to stick onto my card. It's a little hard to see, but you can see a little bit of the reflection on there. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to glue down my flowers to my card, and then you'll see that that frame is going to go on top. And again, I'm just kind of making sure that when I do glue the top frame down, that my flowers will be underneath. I don't want to have them accidentally sticking out. So when I've got them where I want them to be, I'm going to glue a little center dot to start, to keep it where I want it to be, and then I'm going to go back and check again before I start finishing that off. And once it's where I want it to be, I'm going to add a little bit more glue to make sure that everything stays in place. Now when I do a card like this, I like to let this glue dry really, really well. Like I'll usually put it aside, walk away, come back later, maybe move to another card to make sure it's dry, because I don't want my adhesive to be wet in there by accident and stick to anything that it shouldn't. So I have taken some of this red line tape and run this around my frame and peeled it back, and then you can see I'm pressing that in there so I've got a nice adhesion for this frame. I've got these little strips that I've used for years and years and years over time. I'll try and link them. They were kind of hard to find for a bit. They sort of disappeared. I bought this massive pack of them because I use them for so many different things. Like if I need just a little tiny bit of adhesive foam, I can cut a tiny bit off of these strips, and they're a great size. So I'm just going to add a few more of these to fill up my card for my frame. But I'll try and link them if I can find them anymore. I haven't seen them in a bit. And I've got a few of these little pieces here, and I'm just going to make sure that way it's pretty even. And then I've got to peel back all of these little pieces. But I'm going to use a little bit of a static kind of eraser thing to keep the stickiness from the side and to keep my items from sticking on there. Now I have just gone through my craft stash. I have lots of sequins, and I've got some little diamonds and some flowers, little clay flowers, and I am just going to kind of pick some colors that I thought would work well. I will say that I used one of those clay ones. It was a little too thick. So I probably would stick with a sequin or a little bit thinner. I think that clay piece got a little bit too thick. It works, but it didn't give me quite the shake that I wanted. And I'm picky about my shake. You know, if you're going to spend the time making a shaker, you want it to shake. correctly. So they kind of get stuck a little bit. It works, but I would just give that advice. Either add more foam and double it so you've got plenty of shaking room, or pick a different thing, or maybe a flatter sequin or something like that. But overall, it worked out well. And I'm going to glue this onto one of my pattern piece of paper onto that Pixie card base. So that kind of tone on tone looks great. And then I like the contrast of that black frame. And I'm just getting it where I want it to go. And then I will add a sentiment. So this is the "You are the best," and the you best comes out together, and then the "are the" comes out a separate color, so you can cut those two different colors. Okay, moving on. Here is the flower pot box die set. This was an add-on this month with that coordinates with this stamp set that I couldn't resist. I love a 3D box, and so I wanted to try this out. So I've cut 2 pieces of Kiwi, and I'm going to fold these. It's very easy to put together because they're going to match up perfectly. Since it's a perfect die cut, you just need to make sure you're gluing it correctly. That's the only thing that can go awry, is if you don't glue it quite right, you might get off center. So I'm just taking my time here and making sure that the label, the little tab, is where it's supposed to be, and then it should go together pretty well. I will let this dry really, really well. When you're working with projects like this, you need to let them dry, because if not, they will move on you. So I'm going to add, there are some layering pieces on here. I've got another piece of that beautiful black and white kind of swirly paper, and I cut a smaller piece of the plaid one. Thought that was a nice little contrast against that green. And I'm just putting this all together. I'm just showing you that this does fit in an A2 sized envelope, but it depends on how big and how high your flowers are. Now at the end of this one, this card is definitely not going to fit in an A2 sized envelope, because I decided to add more flowers in the back, and so it got a little bit higher, and I'll have to put it in a larger envelope. But that's not a big deal. But just be aware that depending on how you put this thing together and what you stuff it full with, it will make a difference for mailing. So I have chosen 3 different colors here. I'll link them in the description. These are Tri-Blend, the same markers I showed you earlier in the video. I colored a bunch of them. I know one of them is coral and one is a citrus blend. I can't remember the blue color, so I'll be sure and link that. I am using the Newport Alphabet uppercase to create a mom card. Mother's Day, by the time this video comes out, will be past, I believe. And but you could put anything on there. You could use any of your word dies, the ones included in the kit. I just decided to make a bouquet of flowers for my mom. Now I am adding in this inner piece that comes with it. It took me a second to kind of get it in place. There's really only one direction it can go, because the box is cut on an angle, and I'm going to have another video that's a little bit longer and a little more detail on that, so be on the lookout for that. I'm sorry to kind of speed through this in this video, but you can get it in there, and I want to show more detail, but I just don't have the time to show you that and the 9 other cards. So be sure to subscribe if you're not, so you'll get a notification when I put that video up, because I definitely want to spend some more time with this box. I used the penny sliders that I think have been retired, but I've had them in my collection a long time, and I used them to be kind of the stems for my flowers. So I've just created 3 more. I wanted to have a little bit of a fuller box, and so I'm going to add these into that little panel that I added on the inside. If you've ever seen the 3D box set die, Stephanie's got a couple of those that have released over the years. This is the same kind of concept in terms of adding that piece in there. It's a little bit of a different shape, obviously, but it's a lot of fun, and then you can just fill your box up. So I'm going to add that yellow one in the middle, and then I realized I put the wrong color. I didn't want the 2 corals behind each other, and when I was going in, I was like, nope, it's got to come out. So I've got to pull the blue out, and I'll have to reattach that onto the other side. And using liquid glue is nice because you do have a little bit of time until it really dries up to get it where you want it to go. And that is super cute, just as is, but I had some extra flowers. And at this time in my video, the flap is up, but when I finished the video, I didn't like the flap up, so I am going to end up gluing that down. You won't see that on camera. You'll just see it at the end of the video, that the card front looks a little different, the box. So just to let you know, I did add a little bit of that red line tape and glued that down for mailing. So I will add a little bit of these flowers. I did the leaves, I should say. I had a couple of extra of those that I colored as well. So I love this. Love, love, love that. Now I'm going to use the flower pot box set again. I am trimming down some of this pattern paper, but I went ahead and ran one piece through and created one little flower pot because I wanted to show you how to use it to make a card front. So I just trimmed off that end piece, the piece that would have been the part that makes it 3D. I just trimmed that down to turn this into just a front for a card. I've got some of that other paper that I have trimmed and layered, and I'm going to glue this front down, and then I can fill this up with some of my pre-printed die-cut flowers. Now I was going to use the So Kind, but then I thought it was just too busy. It was taken away from, I've got a lot of patterns on this one, and I decided to just flip that over and go with the solid paper on the back, and that color is Cherry, a beautiful, beautiful shade. I'm going to add a piece of tape on the back of these on each side so I can run a little bit of my flower, little bit of my ribbon onto my flower pot, I should say. And I'm going to press that in there, and then I can trim off the tails a little bit. I've got my foam adhesive sheets. These are the full-size sheets that Stamps of Life sells, that I have bunches and bunches of, and I love them. I use them for a ton of different projects. So if you've been a crafter for a while, you probably have a big adhesive stack of different things you like to use for different projects. And so I have different things that I use for different projects all the time. So this is one of them that I definitely keep on hand. Adding a little bit of foam tape here to the back of my flowers, and then I'm going to sit them into my flower pot. They're hanging off a little bit, but I think they'll fit into the A2 sized envelope, but if not, I'll just bump it up to a 5x7, and I think we'll have a great fit there. Thought about using those Puffy stickers, but they just were a little too large for that space, so I decided to skip that, but I'll add another little something in a second after I tie my ribbon. So I just went ahead and cut a little piece of ribbon to tie my bow. And there we go. So I will add this to my pixie card base. And then I'm going to add another little flower. I had a few more of the pre-printed flowers. I think I used almost all of them, but maybe one. I may have one or two left. And I'm going to add that on there, and then a little bit of those pre-printed leaves, just deciding where I'm going to put that for a little bit of color. And there is that card. All right, moving right along. I'm going to trim a piece of pattern paper down, and I'm going to add this to, I'm going to trim this down to 5 1/4 by 4 for my card front, and then I will layer that onto my card. So this is a really quick and simple. I'm starting to end up with a lot of little scraps, and I definitely don't want to let those go to waste. In the card kit, you get a big envelope, an 8.5 by 11 envelope. So that's where I store all my little scraps from the cardstock and the pattern paper, because I'm not going to waste any of that until it gets really, really tiny, tiny. So I had a little love bug pre-printed. This was from a previous card kit, and that I hadn't used, and so I'm going to use this little embellishment on here for my card. But first, let me tie some ribbon on. I'm going to tie another bow with this beautiful organdy. I love the sheerness of it. It's not overwhelming to the card, but it definitely adds a layer of elegance. So, so pretty. And then I will trim down my tails of my ribbon, and then I can put this together. So this is You Are the Best with that sweet little love bug. And I'm going to add one of these puffy stickers to tie it all together. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to some stenciling. This is the Floral Pattern 4-pack stencil that just came out. I cut one of the flowers from the A1 Fold It from Bubblegum, and I am going to ink blend on this stencil pattern. So I'm starting with the, I guess you'd call them stems of the flower, and then I'm going to add the leaves next, and I'm just kind of figuring out where exactly this needs to go. I'm going to have a video on this one too, because I wanted to spend more time on it, but again, time is of the essence, and I spent a lot of time. So I can only keep you for so long, I think, before you just totally fast forward and delete it. So that's the second color I use, the Artichoke, but be on the lookout for that. I want to spend some time with the stencil too. Some tips and tricks on this, on how to put it together, because it's a lot of fun. I've got Razzleberry here, one of my favorite colors, because I really wanted it to pop off of the bubble gum. I did not use the fourth stamp. I decided, the fourth stencil, I should say, that's little polka dots. I didn't think this small of a space needed it. Okay, so here comes that other shaker. These are the A2 shaker envelopes that I am in love with. I have trimmed this paper down. I'll put all the measurements in the description, and it fits perfectly in this little bag. And now I can fill my shaker up. You can see I've got a huge thing of sequins, every color of the rainbow. Pretty much I have 2 of these bins, so I love my sequins for different projects. And I'm going to use a good bit of these. I'm going to add in some of the darker purple and kind of make a custom mix with just a little bit of purple, since there is some of that beautiful grape color included in this set in the colors as well. And then once I get that, it's pretty full. I really want this pretty full because I'm going to add that flower and a word die. So I still want the recipient to be able to see all of those sequins shaking. So I'm going to peel this back and adhere this down, and look at that. I mean, that is a lot of fun. That is a game changer for making a super quick sequined card. And then I've got some of that more of that sticky tape. I'm going to add this to a piece of cherry with just a little bit of border, and then I will add that to a card base. I'm going to use green to pull out some of the green from the flower and the stems. I mean, that is just a lot of fun. I'm loving that. I'm going to add my flower on top, and then the So Kind as well. And I'll pop both of those up with some foam, which should stick very well to the envelope. Now, I leave all this stuff in here. Sometimes I get complaints that I don't put enough in there in the video, and then sometimes I get complaints I put too much. But things like this, you know, we're all at different levels of card making. So I kind of pick and choose what to take out and what to leave in, because people ask me, how did you attach it to the card? And I don't want to skip that. So anyway, there is that fun shaker card. Okay, so we have made it to the end. Here are the 10 cards that I made. I hope you enjoyed this. I had so much fun. We've got that Slimline, I've got that telephone, a shaker card, 2 jars full of floral and buttons, super cute, and still have stuff left over even after making all these cards. You've got the So Kind, that Fold It, that is adorable, and then I also have the You Are the Best with the little love bug and the puffy sticker and that pattern paper. And here is that shaker, that other shaker. So you've got 2 shakers to choose from. And then here is that flower pot that I turned the box die from. So I've got a 2-dimensional and a 3-dimensional. So take your choice. Look at those. And I was just showing you where I had glued down that front flap. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in the card kit, be sure to check out the description with my code. And to learn more details, leave me a comment and let me know if you had a favorite card, or if you have any questions about the card kit, or anything at Stamps of Life, I will get back to you and answer it the best I can. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.